These men were equipped with a standard-issue M1911 pistol or M1917 revolver and a single bayonet.
All right, y'all, welcome back to Combat Arms channel. Okay, so today we're checking out arguably one of the most well-known units, I guess, or subunits of the Vietnam War, and that is the tunnel rats. So I'm not really sure, I'm not sure how big the tunnel rats was. I'm not sure if it was, I don't think it was a specific unit. I think it's kind of just like, hey, we have a tunnel, get the smallest dude and give him a 1911 and send him into the tunnel. So I don't know if it was like an official sort of unit, but I do want to learn more about them because, again, they are very well known. A lot of people know about them. And even if you're not big into like war history or anything like that, everybody knows the term tunnel rat. If you guys don't know, I did what we called tunnel rat school, but it was basically like a subterranean combat course. And, you know, although it is like definitely a beast just based off of the confined spaces and the logistics with being in a subterranean environment, it was nothing near as bad as what these guys went through. So let's check out this video. This is from a YouTube channel called Dark Docs. So I will put the original video in the description. They do a lot of really cool stuff as far as like military history. So let's get into it.
Imagine crawling your way through a seemingly never-ending series of foreign underground tunnels, armed only with a flashlight, a knife, and a small pistol.
Mm-hmm. Oh, gas mask too?
Tunnel rats. These missions formed part of their day-to-day lives. Hundreds of fearless American and Australian soldiers were chosen by the Army specifically for this task.
Okay.
They were selected not only due to their short stature and stout physiques, but also due to their intrepidness and attention to detail.
Good way of
Gathering
putting
enemy
it.
intelligence and disarming bombs inside these underground structures came with plenty of risks. The booby traps the North Vietnamese Army used against them have gone down in history as some of the most ingenious yet terrifying methods of defense.
Yeah, honestly, those traps alone are like almost like torture devices because, you know, there's a lot of like punji sticks and whatnot. You'll fall into these holes, or there's sometimes things that'll swing out with like, you know, spikes and whatnot, bamboo spikes. And yeah, there's a lot of really, really sinister stuff in the Vietnam War. But the fact that they're under this, you know, underground in these small confined tunnels with a pistol, you know, with like, what, 7 rounds in it, and these flashlights, I gotta say, these flashlights are some of the worst flashlights you could have seen. I mean, like today, they're really bad. I'm sure back in the day they're okay, but those things are not very good. They're not like today's flashlights. You could barely see anything with them.
A big surprise. The North Vietnamese Army both frustrated and puzzled U.S. troops. When the U.S. attempted to pursue its enemy, the Viet Cong's men seemed to vanish into thin air as they melted away deep into the jungle.
That's scary.
American soldiers would often come under enemy fire from positions that seemed to be hidden in a tree line. But when such a line was searched, there was no sign of anyone.
Good grief.
The Americans simply could not understand how the North Vietnamese were able to disappear without a trace. In reality, the Viet Cong had been using a tunnel system to move around the jungle undetected.
Though I gotta say, you gotta watch a documentary on the tunnels alone. They are extremely sophisticated. Again, they're very small and they're not really meant for like American stature, obviously, but they had like almost entire like cities underground. Of course, you know, you couldn't stand up or anything and the air wasn't very good, but they had people like living under there for extended periods of time. So they're pretty sophisticated.
This system wasn't new. Since the earliest stages of the war against the French in the 1940s, the Vietnamese began a hands-on construction of an extensive underground tunnel system in the jungle terrain of South Vietnam.
Okay.
The tunnels were expanded and further improved by the Viet Cong for the war against the Americans. The construction was so massive and complex that by the 1960s, the tunnel complexes included hospitals, storage, and even army headquarters.
Oh, wow, yeah, that one is crazy.
The Ho Chi Minh Trail, as it's now known, covered a distance of almost 155 miles and linked Viet Cong bases from Saigon all the way to the Cambodian border.
Dang, holy
The system
cow.
allowed the North Vietnamese to remain hidden subterraneously for months at a time. It gave them an enormous advantage over their adversaries.
That is impressive. Like, looking at it, it seems like it'd be pretty easy to find, like, all the entrances and whatnot, but, again, like, they're pretty good at camouflaging stuff because they use, like, booby traps and whatnot, so it's just terrifying to think that you could randomly come across a tunnel or, you know, get attacked from all directions.
They were made with corners that had between a 60 and 120 degree angle to them. This meant that shooting in a straight line was virtually impossible. It also helped deflect bombs blasted by the enemy.
Interesting.
The trail's entrances and exits were so well hidden that the Viet Cong troops could basically pop up out of nowhere for ambushes and surprise attacks. This also allowed them to set up their infamous booby traps.
Yep.
In January 1966, the 173rd Airborne Division conducted Operation Crimp, around a notoriously defended area known as the Iron Triangle. During the operation, American troops found several booby traps, as well as bunkers. Baffled, they called in Australian engineers that were working with the 173rd Airborne Brigade.
Hell yeah, the Aussies,
When
man.
the Australians began sapping the place, they ran into a heavy concealed door that led into a strange tunnel entrance.
Oh my god,
When
that
they
must have
entered
been
the tunnel,
scary.
They did so only with a flashlight and a single bayonet.
Damn, a bayonet?
Once inside, the Americans and the Australians were in shock at the level of sophistication of the tunnel system. They had just stumbled into the Viet Cong's headquarters.
Oh man. Another thing, like the Aussies in Vietnam is not a well-known thing, especially in the U.S. I would say it took me until about a month ago to realize that the Australian troops were actually in Vietnam with us. So it's not like a thing that's taught, which is kind of weird because, you know, we do go over Vietnam a pretty decent amount, but yeah, it's kind of a shame that we don't talk about the Aussies part in it because they did some pretty badass stuff.
The American and Australian troops wanted to discover more of the tunnels. They knew important intelligence documents had to be inside. And so U.S. commanders began to send more and more soldiers into the tunnels. They would have to recover weapons caches and important documents, all while knowing they were in danger of running into the enemy.
That took a lot
These
out of
brave
you.
subterranean soldiers were all volunteers and became known to American troops as tunnel rats. Australian troops referred to them as ferrets.
Ferrets, okay, that's cool.
Vietnam tunnel rats.
Here we go.
Not just anybody could become a tunnel rat. Going down into this complex tunnel system was a hazardous business.
Yeah.
According to Chemical Officer Herbert Thornton, these volunteers, quote, had to have an even temperament, an inquisitive mind, a lot of common sense, and be exceptionally brave.
You could summarize that in another way,
These
but
tunnel rats were
yeah.
in statures 5 feet 5 inches and shorter.
So even at the time, especially like nowadays with subterranean combat, you have like plenty of like meters to detect chemicals, or you know, like if the oxygen is getting really low. Back in the day, they didn't have any of that. They didn't even have any way to scan or communicate with the people. They might have had some comms, but I'm sure it didn't work too well when they went down the tunnel. So they didn't have specialized stuff. So you can pretty well imagine that the guys going down there were some of the hardest dudes they had.
So they would be able to maneuver their bodies inside the narrow tunnels. Most of them were almost exclusively of Hispanic descent, such as Puerto Rican or Mexican American.
I did not know that. That's cool. Puerto Rican.
These men were equipped with a standard-issue M1911 pistol or M1917 revolver and a single bayonet, as well as a flashlight and demolition explosives. The loud report from their guns often left the tunnel rats temporarily deaf.
Oh,
because
yeah,
of the confined
true.
Space.
Dang, that would suck.
Tunnel rat operations were problematic from the very start. First, tunnel detection was challenging, as its entrances were heavily camouflaged. Hence, the soldiers had to stomp their feet into possible entrances for an accurate location. Once the entrance was detected, the tunnel rat would access the entrance head first, with other teammates' help, who would lower him by holding onto his ankles.
No way.
This position allowed
dang.
the soldier to grab his pistol in one hand and his flashlight in the other.
Oh, that's freaking
Once
sick,
everyone on
dude.
the team was inside the tunnel, the team's
That's
leader
smart.
would use the bayonet to examine the area for mines and booby traps.
Oh, okay, that's what it's for.
Simultaneously, the second in command would assist in pulling security, while also looking up for tripwires on the ceiling of the tunnel.
Huh.
A dangerous mission.
That's awesome. I love
Tunnel
the
rat's
footage.
casualty rate was around 33%, a high number even for the Vietnam War. It was a risky volunteer opportunity. The missions were terrifying, even for the sanest of soldiers.
No
Not only was
kidding.
the tunnel's darkness and narrowness harrowing, but they also hid several dangers. According to former tunnel rat Jim Merritt, although thorough, their training did not prepare them for all the experiences they actually encountered on the job.
Yeah, Vietnam was just
As he
a
described,
whole
quote,
different beast.
We were trained at the Australian Army's School of Military Engineering, located 20 miles west of Sydney.
Oh, snap, that's cool.
The 3-month course covered a lot of ground: mine detection, booby trap disarming, tunnel searching, and demolitions.
So I'm not sure if they're saying that there's a specific tunnel rat course that they're going to in Australia, or if that's for something else like engineer or something. But again, it's cool to hear about this stuff. You don't think about people like Americans going to Australia to train for stuff in like Vietnam, but it's just really awesome to see that, you know, working relationship.
Somehow I had convinced myself that my job as a combat engineer was going to be more engineer than combat, that the truly dangerous stuff would be handled by real experts. I was wrong.
Oh, snap.
When the Viet Cong found out about the tunnel rats and their intentions, they began taking countermeasures to protect themselves, and they loved using booby traps.
Yep, it's pretty well known.
The Viet Cong used venomous snakes, infected sticks, spiders, and even scorpions to attack the soldiers.
Freaking cobra?
Tunnel rats were advised to enter the tunnels wearing a gas mask since the Viet Cong also enjoyed using poison gas.
My gosh.
But since these devices made it even harder to see, hear, and breathe, many of them refused to wear them.
Yeah, you gotta just take your chances at that point.
As the tunnels were old and hand-dug, they were also at risk of sudden collapse. With all the dangers that came with the job, the courageous men needed to maintain a clear mental state of mind to not let the fear get the best of them. It was well known to their superiors, the tunnel rats experienced a very physically and mentally demanding task in the underground tunnels.
Yeah, no kidding. Just a lack of oxygen
These perilous
alone.
tasks could also push a tunnel rat's emotional state to his breaking point. Operating in a confined and pitch-black environment while crawling for hours looking for a heavily armed and angry enemy would cause even the sanest soldiers to mentally break down.
When I'm thinking like about the tunnel rats, I'm thinking about them going into a tunnel, maybe coming out after like 30 minutes, maybe an hour. But imagine being in like this pitch black tunnel where you can barely move for hours, just constantly going around searching for stuff, not knowing if the next turn is going to be a booby trap or something. So yeah, you need some really tough, mentally tough people to be doing stuff like that.
According to the book Tunnel Warfare, quote, occasionally under the strain, a tunnel rat's nerves would break and he'd be dragged from the tunnel screaming and crying. Once this happened, he would never be allowed down a tunnel again. Dang. Only the strongest were able to continue. Brave men. The dangers of this underground occupation turned the tunnel rat into a position of respect and high reverence by their fellow troops. Their unofficial Latin motto, non gratum annus dorentum, translating to not worth a rat's ass, the tunnel rats were amongst the bravest and most courageous fighters in Vietnam.
That's awesome.
As for the tunnel rats themselves, they appreciated the adrenaline that came with the job. They loved telling their brave stories to everyone else at their base.
Oh, no kidding. You can't top that.
The tunnel rats were doing a kind of subterranean warfare that had never been done before. The procedure had been born out of pure necessity, and it was incredibly successful.
Good stuff.
The tunnel rats procedures first garnered public attention in 1966, after a very public operation between the US and Australian soldiers in the Binh Duong province, known as Operation Crimp. In the years following the war's end, many of the tunnel rats suffered from Agent Orange injuries due to their exposure to the chemicals on the tunnel's grounds.
Oh, damn, that sucks.
By the end of the decade, over 4,800 tunnels had been discovered by the U.S. and its allied forces.
Good grief.
The U.S. Army heavily depended on the tunnel rats' highly specialized skill set. Without them, America would have incurred far more casualties and achieved far less success than the war.
No doubt.
Although one could think that this tunnel system was rather rudimentary, at the height of its use, the network gave the Viet Cong a sense of security and power over the enemy, which boosted their morale.
Yeah, it's so simple, but it's effective.
Underground tunnels are still used in war today, since they allow for plenty of strategic surprises.
Yep.
Nowadays, some of the tunnels used in the war can still be found in the jungle. They're currently preserved and maintained by the Vietnamese government.
That'd be kind of cool to see.
Tourists can crawl through sections of the dark tunnels used by Viet Cong troops and tunnel rats alike. But today, fortunately, there are no mines, booby traps, or poisonous snakes to fight with.
Yeah, that'd be pretty humbling to check out. All right. Great stuff. So again, I'm not exactly sure if they were their own specific unit or whatnot, but we definitely got a lot of information about the tunnel rats, and definitely some pretty good appreciation for them as well, because it takes somewhat, I mean, just fighting in Vietnam was insane. It definitely took someone who's mentally resilient to go through that and you know, make it okay enough on the other side. But for the tunnel rats, again, you can't really top stories like that. For someone going down in a pitch dark tunnel and doing stuff like that with a flashlight, a bayonet, and a pistol, yeah, it's kind of hard to even imagine, even for some of the other guys that fought in Vietnam. So with that, if you guys know of any documentaries or movies or videos of tunnel rats sort of telling their stories, please put that down in the comments section. I have seen a video or like a documentary about the tunnels themselves, so I know how much of a beast those things are. And again, I did, you know, modern subterranean combat. Very different from this, but sort of shares the same roots. And yeah, you definitely get good appreciation for what these guys must have gone through. So if you guys know of any videos, please put it down below. Or if you have any stories that you heard as well from tunnel rats, whether it be from the US side, the Aussie side, or what have you, put that down below as well, because that'd be awesome to hear about. But yeah, this is a cool video. Dark Docs does some pretty cool historical videos. So if you guys want to check that out, you can watch a lot of cool historical videos. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If If you did, you can hit that thumbs up, subscribe. I would appreciate it. You can check out the Patreon. You can check out my shorts channel if you want to see me doing some shooting and weird goofy stuff that I'm not going to put on the main channel. You can check that out as well down in the video description. But thank you guys for watching. That is it for this video. I will see you all in the next one.